I want to carry that theme through and think through a lens that is more empathetic about some of the different actors in our story, right? And sort of engage empathetically with the different actors and illustrate, again, some of the tensions and complexities that are part of the story. Although I'll say, even at the end, some of my empathy starts to run dry when I'm thinking about the role of the prosecutor and what I think the role of a good prosecutor in society might be. If I were to first start thinking empathetically about the Muslim student units at University of Irvine, I think you can see it's very easy to engage smart people, compassionate people, people who I think have a very healthy motivation about what they think justice is and injustice, people who are trying to make their voices heard. And I think more broadly, I think you can say trying to do so within a frame of standard First Amendment discourse, right? Trying to think through what are the rules that apply to these things, how can we constructively engage within a broader framework that recognizes that disagreement is part of discourse as well, that there can be dissent within the context of the First Amendment, and trying to conduct themselves in a way that is part of a broader framework of dissent within a context that also respects values of free speech. Although the deeper story also illustrates how hard that is to do, how blurry those lines can be, how subject they can be for honest disagreement about tactics and whether one tactic is crossing one line or not. But also I would actually say from a broader tradition, one that is, as Professor Roth was saying, could even go further, right? I think, again, within different contexts, and again, everybody has to think about these things in a thoughtful way, where civil disobedience is not an improper tool of activism either, right? And so one might also be engaging, I say this as a law professor, in ways that one is consciously going to go beyond what the law may permit. But again, that's also, if you're thinking about a broader tradition in which civil disobedience is part of, needs to be done in a sense, in a broader sense of compassion, in a sense of nonviolence, in a sense of respect for the people in which even you are trying to oppose. So it's not a call for violence or for anything else, but these are hard things. And I see when I think empathetically about the students' efforts to try to constructively deal with that and applaud them for those efforts, right? And I think we can empathetically understand that. I will tell you, though, and I sat down about 2 days ago and watched the entire video of the event, and again, you should sort of get into the facts yourselves and see them. I can also think empathetically on the part of the university, right? If somebody organizes a lot of university events, who often tries to push that line of bringing in controversial speakers, because I think that's part of a university obligation to expose to our students and to engage in honest discourse, that there's something special about universities. We've got to be able to have ideas. We've got to be able to have controversial people in. We've got to be able to listen, right? There's maybe a right to speak, right? But I would say there's an equally important obligation to listen sometimes. And if I empathetically engage the university's perspective, I see a lot of things that, boy, you're pushing a line, right? It is disruptive, and I know that's the intent, but that comes at some cost, right? And again, I'm not here to pass judgment on things. I'm here to sort of point that these are difficult tensions and hard decisions to make, but they're not costless choices, right? And one needs to think carefully about what tactics one takes, when is one doing that, and what is lost, right? And there is something lost when a speaker is not able to speak, right? As I suggested, I start losing empathy when I start thinking about the prosecutor in this case, right? Because it is a responsibility. It's a public role. And in theory, although all prosecutors, maybe not all, but it's hard to think of any prosecutor that's not really also a political position, right? And there's always some very serious notion of politics and the notion of prosecutorial discretion. I think this could be a real healthy debate as part of a university discussion about a student code of conduct. Right? What are the university norms? Were the conduct here consistent with that norms? What are the implications of that in the notion of civility in a context of a university? And I can imagine a whole wide range of healthy arguments on both sides. I actually think healthy in the sense that it gets people to think about what our mission is, one that should be done inclusively and not one with people in handcuffs and intimidation, to get us to think harder as a university, because that's our role, right? And to think about how a university should respond to this kind of challenge. And I can't even say where I would come out on that. Right? I think I'd have to think harder about this because, again, these are hard values and hard things to engage in. right? But I also think we should be left alone. This isn't a political question of that sort. This is not a criminal question of that sort. And I think there's something very unhealthy if you're thinking about a civil liberties perspective, if you're thinking about autonomy of universities, right? If you're thinking about a civil rights perspective. I'm going to talk about that a little bit, and I'm going to conclude very quickly so we can get time to your questions and answers. But it's just very hard to see why this much time, this much energy, this much discretion is being played out in a case like this. Right? Very hard to see what the payoff is. Very hard to see a motive that is something you can embrace as being something that an economist would call social welfare maximizing. Right? What good, a greater good, is coming out of this prosecution? And as long and hard as I think about it, and I always like to keep an open mind, I don't have a very long list of answers to that. I don't see what good is coming out of making this into a criminal case. If I think conversely from a civil rights perspective, what I see is chilling speech, right? Telling people that if you're an activist, it's going to come at a huge cost. If you wanted to apply to law school and you have criminal record, right, you can start to really damage somebody's career for decades to come. So, as I say before, I think we should engage empathetically. I'm happy to continue meditating upon the motivation of the prosecutor in Orange County, but so far I'm coming up pretty short on good reasons why this should be a criminal matter or not. I think it's disturbing. It goes beyond just sort of being misguided. I think if you put it in a broader backdrop of disparate treatment of Muslims in America, it's a bigger civil rights question, right? And I think that people should care about the Irvine 11 from a broader civil rights perspective because it's part of a broader pattern of targeting people because of their religion, because of their ethnicity, because of their political beliefs. And that's something that we all should care about and all should fight hard to try to safeguard and protect. But thank you very much.